Hey guys, let's take a look at some charts on Litecoin, the latest article for Brave New Coin. So since halving, Litecoin hasn't really been performing that well, relatively. If we compare it to the Bitcoin halving narrative, the idea is that should demand remain the same or increase, price will increase because supply decreases or inflation decreases. So Litecoin's inflation is currently around 4% since having August 7th last year. Price hasn't really recovered to that level. You can see there was definitely a run up pre-halving, which was arguably market wide and not necessarily specific to Litecoin halving. It's certainly possible that Litecoin halving had a market wide impact. Litecoin was one of the early movers in early 2019. It moved probably before everything else did, including EOS. So it moved late February, as you can see on the chart here, late February 2019. I had a couple chart patterns here. If you're a chart pattern person, inverted head and shoulders, it had a nice Adam Eve, and then it was just off to the races. Here there was a nice move off of a short squeeze coming from a previous consolidation area. So that was quite a move. But since then, there hasn't really been anything amazing on the price side for Litecoin. Obviously, it's up, 2x since the bottom. So clearly it's doing well. But since June, July, August, it hasn't really recovered to those levels. And nothing really has crypto-wide, market-wide. So it's probably unfair to just talk about Litecoin specifically in that regard. But one thing that worries me, again, with Litecoin is the hash rate dropped off precipitously. This is a 70% drop off. So August 7th was the halving. And you can see just death hasn't recovered. Again, if we're comparing this to BTC, the closest analog is Litecoin. And it'll be interesting post BTC halving what happens as mining profitability drops, which is what happened here. And miners who were perhaps adding hash rate here because it was profitable to do so as price was increasing. If price drops for BTC and hash rate drops for BTC, it's a compounding effect. So we'll see what happens. But, just looking at Litecoin in a vacuum, seeing hash rate drop and then not recover isn't bullish. Just one of the many pieces here. Now, this is a sensitive subject, talking about development and GitHub commits, which arguably are useless. But when I see GitHub commits clearly higher than they were several years prior and then drop to zero, the question is what's going on here? Are there any developers? Now, Charlie Lee has come on and said there will always be development. There's the Litecoin Foundation. There's Adrian Gallagher, who's basically taking the Bitcoin protocol upgrades and implementing them on Litecoin. This process is very similar to Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. Ethereum will implement upgrades and then Ethereum Classic will implement them months later as they're ported over. Another thing regarding Litecoin development is they are attempting sidechains with MimbleWimble and extension blocks. It's still actively being developed. We'll see where that leads. My own opinion is that these things are a detriment to the chain because what happens in the extension block stays in the extension block. So anything can happen in the black box extension block and then get added to the chain. So it's kind of like it has its own rules. So there needs to be ways to mitigate against that. And that's hopefully something they'll look into. Talking about transactions and average transaction values, you can see it's just ranged for 2 years. There hasn't really been a significant increase or decrease in both metrics here. Not bullish or bearish. On face value, certainly not bullish. Looking at block size and fees, again, block size, narrow range, nothing to write home to mom about. Fees, low, not increasing, not spiking, nothing really crazy going on there, which is good. Now, if we look at NVT, which is the line here, and the fill, which is active addresses, I'll start with active addresses. And again, similar to transactions per day, if you're bullish something, you want to see new people coming out of the chain. You want to see more transactions. You want to see more active addresses. All inactive addresses is an address that's changed in value over the specified period. So this would be, I usually average these out over the week period. So have the number of new addresses that have accrued value over the past week increased or decreased, you can see the trend hasn't really been exciting, non-specific ranging. Now, if we look at NVT, which is an inverse measure of economic utility, you can see NVT's at an all-time high. So what this says is that the current market cap doesn't make sense based on economic utility. So either this metric is bogus and unuseful, or it makes a lot of sense and Litecoin's overvalued. Depends on what you want to see. Now, historically, you can compare this to where it was at previous price points in the range. January 2019, it was at a range low, and then it went up, then it went back down, then it went back up, post-halving. So this kind of follows price fairly well. And right now it's basically saying Litecoin's severely overbought based on how the network is used, how much the network is used. Now, if we look at MVRV, which is another one of these crypto-specific economic metrics, when MVRV is high, this is just metric specific, that says we're overbought. Similar to RSI and oscillator, this is overbought, this is oversold. You can see we're in the middle of the range here. So although NVT is alarmingly high historically, MVRV doesn't look too bad. If you're bullish, this is what you want to see. If you're bullish, you don't want to see MVRV at a historic high. If you're bearish, you want to see it up here. If you're bullish, you want to see it down here. Now, with all that being said, the title of the article is Golden Cross Not Supported by On-Chain Metrics. So the tech for LTC looks amazing. Golden Cross, first of all, if we look at the 50 and the 200 EMA, something that I look at on every chart, EMA or die. So Golden Cross this past week broke the yearly pivot, which is what these are, and those are just mathematical highs and lows based on the previous year. So it broke the yearly pivot, and it's supported on the pivot 3 days in a row, and arguably there's very little upside volume resistance here, until it got past this $50 psychological level. That was the big zone, at the 200, and you can see it pulled back here and then gathered more steam. So it's unlikely to shoot through 100 for a similar reason, just another psychological value. And the second upside target would be 148, something like that, 150 definitely. Now, long shorts here are definitely lopsidedly long, 97% long. So if this does pull back, it can pull back pretty quickly. But historically, if we look at how high these longs have been for a year plus now, it's unlikely that even a drop to 50 is going to affect them greatly. And shorts definitely at an all-time low. One thing you want to see if you're bullish is price to go up and shorts to spike, because that'll just add potential fuel. Again, there was this short squeeze here. And what happened? As soon as shorts went at an all-time high, immediately got squeezed. So I think this lines up well. Yeah, so they get squeezed, then price comes off, then price takes off again. That's what you want to see for any further moves up here around 100. And then RSI, there's no real bearish divergence, bullish divergence, nothing going on here that looks particularly concerning or alarming or worth noting. Looking at the cloud, all you need to know about the cloud is that if we're above it, it's bullish. If we're below it, it's bearish. That's the first thing. Cloud itself is bullish. The TK lines, the blue and the red lines, also bullish. You want to see all this stuff, pretty neatly one side or the other. Currently, it's definitely all bullish. This was clearly all bearish and just kept going and going and going until we flipped bull. This was all bearish. We kept going and going and going until we flipped bull. So again, that's the expectation here. No signs of bearish reversal at all. Lastly, if we look at LTC, BTC, coming up on a golden cross, again, 50, 200, the green and the red line here. Will flip bullish over the next week or so. The big concern here is the volume upside resistance is massive. So let's say it gets through, 08888 or whatever it is, 0088, which is another psychological level. And then it gets to 01, which is another psychological level. It's got another huge volume resistance here to get through. Now, this could just be Bitfinex's volume profile, but these are definitely going to be levels that it's going to see some consolidation before it gets through. And then even there, it's going to have consolidation. If by some miracle it gets up to 0.07, additional heavy resistance up there. So in the meantime, again, bullish, just like LTC USD, unlikely to break 01 anytime soon. I think it's going to take weeks to months in range mode to get through basically this previous consolidation period. It's probably going to take just as long. We'll say 3 months maybe. This was like 6 to 8 here. But my guess would be if it's going to continue up, it's going to take 3 months to get through that massive volume block.